Are Democrats feeling the burn? Politico says far-left candidate Bernie Sanders has piqued the interest of Democratic insiders. But does he really stand a chance at the nomination? Here to debate, Democratic strategist Kevin Walling and Republican strategist Joseph Pinion. Thank you both for joining me. How are you?
Hey, Carly. Good morning. Good to see you.
All right, so Real Clear Politics average has Bernie Sanders in second place, about 9 points behind Joe Biden. But man, Kevin, Bernie Sanders has staying power after that heart attack and a little bit of a threat from Elizabeth Warren. Do you think that he could be the eventual nominee?
Yeah, Carly, it's a great question. I mean, to your point, who in American politics can survive a heart attack on the campaign trail, come back and see his poll numbers go up?
Yeah.
And I think, as you say, you know, the decline that we've seen in Elizabeth Warren support nationwide and in some of these early states, Iowa is just 38 days away from folks going to the polls in Iowa. You're seeing that dip in support for her is really contributing to Bernie's surge that we're seeing in the polls.
And you know, Joseph, the interesting thing about Bernie Sanders, he's a Democratic socialist. A lot of people wrote him off because he is so far to the left, but he has the highest favorability rating of all the candidates at 74%. So, Joseph, what do you think about all of this, and how do you feel about his staying power?
Well, look, I think Bernie Sanders is who we thought he was. I mean, he is the Pied Piper of the socialist movement. He's leading an entire generation of young Democrats over the cliff towards policies that have never worked in the history of the world. That's just what we have to deal with. Having said that, we have to remember he got 13 million votes in 2016. He has an army of small donors, and similar to 2016, he will have the ability to stay in all the way to convention. I've said from the very beginning, I think Democrats are headed to a brokered convention, whether they like it or not. And I think that's why you see so many of these candidates jockeying for position in the early states, because they know this is going to be a long haul, and we're in it for the long road.
Yeah, Kevin, playing off of what Joseph just said, are you worried that this slate of candidates is getting too far to the left? We have Pete Buttigieg coming out with a pretty progressive plan on decriminalizing certain drugs. And how do you think that will play in the general election?
Yeah, Joseph makes some good points. Of course, we know in the history of presidential politics, often candidates tack to the right or the left in the primary in order to be successful, and then kind of tack back towards the middle as we head towards November. I'm not worried about our slate of candidates and the positions that they're taking. I still think there's a really strong centrist lane, whether it be with the former vice president, whether it be with Senator Amy Klobuchar of Minnesota, who's actually somewhat surging in the polls in Iowa, too. She's up in the low teens that we're seeing in the latest round of polling out of Des Moines. So I do think there is a lane for moderate folks to be successful in the primary and hopefully to be successful in November.
Yeah, Joseph, are you concerned that if the candidate is a moderate, a Joe Biden, a Pete Buttigieg, do you think that could really put President Trump under the gun, and could it be a tough re-election for him?
I mean, look, I think there is a moderate lane in the Democratic Party, but I think there are many Democrats in the Democratic primary who reject that lane. And I think people like President Trump in particular are salivating at the opportunity for somebody like Elizabeth Warren or somebody like Bernie Sanders, who has unequivocally said that they want to remake America into something that's never been before, to attack policies that were actually the antithesis of what this nation stands on. So I think, yes, there is always that hope. That's why Joe Biden is still there, because he is that centrist who can threaten Trump in places like Pennsylvania and Wisconsin. But ultimately, I think, again, this is going to be a very long, drawn-out Democratic primary process.
Yeah, well, there are a whole lot of other candidates also running for president, and two of them are billionaires, Michael Bloomberg and Tom Steyer. And, Kevin, they have spent a combined $200 million on ad buys so far. How do you think that factors into the election, and could it unfairly hurt the chances of somebody like Elizabeth Warren or Bernie Sanders, who are sort of relying on small dollar donations?
Yeah, Carly, it's a great point. I mean, it's very clear that Tom Steyer, businessman out of California, bought his way onto the primary stage, where you've seen more popular candidates kind of fall by the wayside, specifically Senator Kamala Harris, who was unable to maintain that level of support. So it's troubling to me that we're seeing this massive amount of money. I don't want to see any candidate buying their way onto a debate stage, buying their way into the hearts and minds of voters. I think we need to duke it out, and it'll be interesting to see if Mike Bloomberg's strategy of going right to the Super Tuesday states is going to be a winning one, and not focusing on the 4 early states as the other candidates are.
Yeah, it should be interesting to see that. Or will it end up being just like them burning a whole bunch of money. Joseph, how do you feel about this? Should candidates be allowed to be self-funded, or, there's this whole debate over high-dollar fundraisers. How do you feel about that?
I mean, look, this is America. I mean, if you have the money and you want to spend it on a presidential process, be my guest. I think we're seeing unprecedented amounts of money being spent. I mean, Mike Bloomberg himself has spent over $120 million in 3 weeks. That's just the ad budget. That's not the staffing. That's not the food. That's not the travel. That's just advertising. You got people in Williamsburg, people in Williams in North Carolina seeing ads 36 times a day. So really, I think what he's doing is delegate math. He's not trying to buy the primary outright. He's trying to buy delegates. That's why you see the amount of money he's spending in California and all of those places along the Black Belt where it's really cheap to advertise and where he thinks that he can chip away at those moderate voters, at those 0 for 4 primary voters who he can bring out just by being on TV every single day.
All right, Kevin and Joseph, thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Carly. Good to see you.